Here's a question you have probably never considered. What did your ancestors keep as pets before dogs existed? You have a cat on your lap or a dog at your feet. You think of pets as a natural part of human life. They are not. Pet keeping is a specific behavior that your ancestors invented, tested, failed at, and refined over tens of thousands of years. And the first animal they succeeded with was not a dog. It was something you would never guess. Let us start with what you think you know. Dogs were domesticated from wolves about 15,000 years ago, maybe longer. That is true, but dogs were not the first attempt. They were just the first attempt that stuck. The oldest known pet in the archaeological record is not a dog, it is a fox. In 2011, archaeologists working in a grave in Jordan found the skeleton of a human buried with a fox. The fox was carefully placed, not thrown in. The body was arranged, the bones showed signs of having been fed and cared for in life. The grave was 16,500 years old. That's 1,500 years before the oldest known dog burial. Someone buried their pet fox before anyone thought to bury a dog. The fox was not the only experiment. At a 12,000-year-old site in Israel, the skeleton of a wild cat was found buried in a human grave. The cat was placed in the same position as the human. This was not a coincidence. Someone loved that cat enough to bury it like family. In Cyprus, a 9,500-year-old grave contained a human buried with a small deer. The deer was too young to have been hunted. It must have been raised. Someone kept a deer as a pet and was buried with it. In China, a 10,000-year-old site contained the remains of a wild boar buried with a woman. The boar showed no signs of being butchered. It wasn't food. It was a companion. Your ancestors tried everything: foxes, cats, deer, boars, bears, monkeys, birds, snakes, and even hyenas. The Egyptian pharaohs kept cheetahs, baboons, and crocodiles as pets. The Romans kept dormice in special jars. The ancient Maya kept parrots and macaws. But keeping a wild animal as a pet is not the same as domesticating it. There's a difference between taming and domestication. Taming is when you take a wild animal and raise it to tolerate humans. That fox in Jordan was tamed, not domesticated. Its children would still be wild. Domestication is when you breed animals over generations to change their genetics permanently. It takes hundreds or thousands of years. Dogs are domesticated. The fox was just a pet. So why did dogs succeed where others failed? Dogs had something no other animal had. They already lived on the edge of human settlements. Wolves that were less afraid of humans got access to scraps. Those wolves had more pups. Those pups inherited the less fearful genes. Over thousands of years, wolves became dogs without anyone actively trying to domesticate them. The same thing happened with cats. About 10,000 years ago, humans in the Middle East started farming and storing grain. Grain attracted mice. Mice attracted wild cats. Cats that were less afraid of humans got more mice. They stayed. Humans did not domesticate cats. Cats domesticated themselves. A 2014 genetic study confirmed that all modern domestic cats descend from the African wild cat, Felis sylvestris libica. The study traced the domestication to two main lineages, one in the Middle East and one in Egypt. Cats spread across the world not because humans carried them, but because they followed the mice. They did not need us, they wanted the mice. We were just the landlords. In ancient Egypt, cats went from self-domesticated pest control to full-blown deities. The goddess Bastet had the head of a cat. Killing a cat in ancient Egypt was punishable by death. When a family cat died, the household went into mourning and shaved their eyebrows as a sign of grief. Mummified cats have been found by the thousands. The Egyptians did not just keep cats, they worshipped them. Foxes were different. A famous experiment in Russia starting in 1959 showed that foxes could be domesticated in just 40 generations. Scientists bred only the tamest foxes generation after generation. Within 40 years, the foxes developed floppy ears, curly tails, and dog-like behavior. They whined for attention. They wagged their tails when they saw humans. They were genetically different from wild foxes. The experiment proved that domestication can happen fast if you select for tameness, but it also proved why ancient humans failed with foxes. You need to breed them selectively for generations. Hunter-gatherers did not have the time or the resources for that kind of long-term breeding program. The ancient Egyptians tried domesticating hyenas. There are Egyptian tomb paintings showing hyenas being raised in captivity, fed by hand, and even used as hunting animals. But hyenas never became fully domesticated. They were too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too expensive to feed. The experiment was abandoned. The same thing happened with cheetahs. Egyptian nobles kept cheetahs as hunting companions, but every cheetah had to be caught from the wild. They never bred in captivity. You could not start a cheetah bloodline, you could only catch and tame one. The ancient Romans kept bears as pets, but they never domesticated them either. Every bear was caught from the wild. You could tame a bear cub, but when it grew up, it was still a bear. Eventually, it would hurt someone. The poet Martial wrote about a Roman woman who kept a bear cub that slept in her bed. When the bear grew up, it killed her. The same problem applied to monkeys, crocodiles, and large snakes. You could keep them, but you could not breed them to be safe. A 2019 study published in the journal Scientific Reports examined the DNA of 5,000-year-old chicken bones found across Europe and Asia. The study found that chickens were domesticated not for food, but for entertainment. The red jungle fowl, the ancestor of all modern chickens, was first kept for cockfighting, not for eggs or meat. Your ancestors kept chickens as pets that fought each other before they thought to eat them. Cows and pigs were domesticated later, around 9,000 years ago, but these were not pets, they were livestock. The relationship was practical, not emotional. You do not name an animal you plan to eat. The first animal to become a true pet, not just a tamed wild animal, remains the dog. But dogs were not the only animal your ancestors tried to love. The archaeological record is full of failed attempts, wild animals that lived alongside humans for a few generations before the experiment ended. Your ancestors were lonely. They were curious. They saw a wild animal and wondered if it could be a friend. Sometimes it worked, a fox buried in a grave in Jordan, cared for and mourned. Sometimes it did not. A hyena raised from a cub that eventually attacked its owner, a bear that killed the woman who raised it. The instinct to keep pets is older than the house cat. It is older than the dog. It might be as old as humanity itself. The next time your dog curls up at your feet or your cat purrs on your lap, remember that you are part of a 16,500-year-old tradition. Your ancestors tried foxes, deer, boars, bears, and hyenas before they got it right. And they kept trying because the need for connection with another species was that strong. They did not have a word for pet. They didn't need one. They just liked having the animal around. The fox in Jordan waited 16,500 years to tell us that love between species is not a modern invention. Your ancestors felt it long before anyone had a word for it. And the next furry thing that curls up next to you at night is proof that they never stopped feeling it.